Well, all right, welcome to episode 9, the last one I've got kind of done and produced before we go back under construction here. I'm currently about 35 miles east of Cincinnati, Ohio, doing about 150 or so calves for an end of the August sale out here. My season, as I mentioned in the last podcast, has started back in full swing. So I'm going to try and holler at you from time to time here. I don't know whether I'll be able to keep on a Monday morning schedule or not. Definitely won't have any more produced segments or episodes, but saved, I think, a dang good one for the last here, and it was recorded whenever everyone from Texas came up for the what I call the World Pork Expo, and it's Jason Lackey, and one of the most sought-after show pig judges in the nation, and there's a very good reason why as you listen to him speak. And actually, I think he just got through judging the Indiana State Fair there a week or two ago, and I'm going to try and get back to producing here as I can, as time allows here on the road. There's lots of days in this next 45 days I'm doing 2 and 3 places a day, so by the time I get done I'm shot, and obviously by the time I get to editing and sorting pictures and video, it's there's no time left in the day. So if I do shout in at you on Mondays, it'll be pretty casual, so don't be disappointed that you're not going to hear a Paul Harvey story, because those obviously take quite a bit of time to produce, not only to record, but I'll have several hours in scrubbing that audio so that they flow as smooth as what they do for you. But anyway, got a whole new group of sponsors wanting to come on board here. We're kind of in negotiations right now, and that's very, very exciting to me. It seems like I've definitely hit the pulse of America with this, and a lot of people are giving me a lot of positive feedback, which that's kind of keeps me fueled and going. Received a couple pretty nice care packages in the mail from a couple different meat companies here, friends of friends who knew I love bacon, and boy, I tell you what, that Beeler's Pure Pork, they sent me some bacon down, and boy, you might have seen in the snap several different types, and man, it's good stuff. And once again, that's BeelersPurePork.com. You know, this specialty meat market, I think, is going to explode. If it hasn't already, I think it's already exploded, and just for the simple fact that, man, you can't get. I had a person tell me yesterday that their local lockers are booked clear out to 22. So, you know, and plus the quality of these meats are phenomenal, and I was really tickled to get that from Beeler's Pure Pork. And then I got a snap from a buddy of mine that runs a packing plant there in Des Moines, and he says, hey, you're going to get a follower by the name of whatever. And he says, be sure and add him. He said, they're wanting to send you some samples too. And I said, well, who is it? And he said, well, it's Burkwood Farms. And I said, I bought at a pig show in Colfax, I bought some of their pork sticks, and they are so much, I like them so much better than the normal spicy, greasy beef jerky, because they're more like they're more like a gourmet type of stick, and they don't upset my stomach like some of that greasy stuff does. And I thought, all right, I'm going to have some pork sticks for the road. And Sean calls me and says, hey, what is this outside our door? And there was a cooler that was about 2 foot by 3 foot by 2 foot full of meat. And obviously Burkwood Farms, thank you a bunch, man. We've enjoyed that. I obviously brought the pork sticks on the road with me, and some of the cuts of meat for out here if we ever get time to grill. But once again, thanks a bunch. Betterpork.com is where you can find their product at if you want to try some of that. I think you'll probably be hearing more from maybe both of them here in the future as I get some stuff produced and get back to the podcast business here. But like I said, I'm going to try and stay in touch with you. Golly, I've had a lot of fun all summer. It won't be quite as produced as what we've been doing, but if you have any ideas of which direction we can go and I can still get it done, I just brought my laptop and my Podcaster Pro in. I'm sitting upstairs in Ryan's house right now. Just got it set up and giving you a shout out here just to get the Jason Lackey podcast up this morning. And anyway, I better get to editing because I've got to be at a place at 10 o'clock here to film. It's good talking to you. I will obviously be in touch, follow my snaps, and I'll keep you informed, and we'll go from there. Miss Rosie's Diner back there. Miss my two counterparts there, Marvin and Rosie. I'm sure you miss them as much too, but anyway, 'tis the season, so let me set you up for this episode 9 with Jason Lackey. As I said earlier, Jason and Will come in with their families and several other families there and swam in our pool there while they were laying over for what I I call the World Pork Expo, and I got Will to sit down. You've obviously heard it, and he hit that out of the park, and then Jason went after him. So we're looking at the same time frame, and Jason's going to close out, going to put us under construction here for a little bit on the podcast. And like I said, I greatly appreciate him doing that. I think you're really going to enjoy it too. He says some remarkable stuff in there, and so he just kind of has a way with words and a way with describing things just so that you can understand it. And anyway, with no further ado, here comes Jason Lackey straight at you.
You're listening to the Genuine JBH podcast, sponsored by Amos Welding, Voss Angus, Werning Cattle Company, Wilkerson Farms, Catalog Livestock Listing Service, powered by SteerBidder.com, and Custom Tees of Middle Georgia.
The one sitting across from me right now is none other than Mr. Jason Lackey. How are you, Jason?
Doing very well.
Thanks for having us, Brad. You betcha. I'm not going to say I know you well at all. I've certainly heard of you all along, and I know the quality of stock that you have. It's certainly not going to be like I knew Gerald or Dean, but I have known your wife for a long time from back whenever she used to build ads and work in the show stock industry, show cattle industry. Jackie was Townsend, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, Jackie Lackey now, and it was good to see her. Ran into her at the fairgrounds. She introduced us, and I told my son going into it, I said, you know what would be the absolute best case scenario is if I could get both Will Winter and Jason Lackey to sit down and just record a little audio here on their life stories a little bit and kind of share it with the world, and that's what we're doing. Jason, I honest to God don't know where you were raised or what your past history has been, so why don't you just start nobody knows anything about the show pig industry or you, and kind of go from there if you would.
Yeah, I will. I appreciate that, Brad. No, I grew up in Aspermont, Texas, which Aspermont sits about 30 miles west of where our farm is at now in Haskell. Mm-hmm. My granddad was an oil field consultant. Did that forever. Worked for Skelly and worked for Texaco, and then did a lot of independent consulting on his own. And my dad followed in his footsteps. We always had cattle. I ran commercial cattle, about 250, 300 head of commercial cattle there in Aspermont. But you know, their main revenue stream, obviously, and I think a lot of people in West Texas could probably say the same thing, was just with the oil field.
Right.
And my dad went down that same path. He did some contract pumping. He also did some independent consulting, and then as I grew older, he started to acquire more business. Had a pulling unit business there for a while, which is basically a workover rig for when wells have problems.
Sure. Wells meaning oil pumps.
Oil wells. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. And then he did that for a while, and then Basic Energy Services ended up buying that company from my dad, and he still works for them to this day. So both very good at what they do. Right. My dad's a great guy, very nice guy, talks to a lot of people, loves being around people. Yep. So people ask me where I missed the boat, genetically where that didn't quite fit in. And I always say it's from my grandpa. He was very mean, but very smart. And they did that forever. And as I grew up, my dad he just kind of steered me away. Just did that. He didn't want me to be a part of the oil field. And I guess with me having a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, I think all of us as dads, we don't want the same headache for our children that we have for ourselves. And I think that was kind of his mindset. So with not being really involved in the oil patch every day, it just never was my thing. It was never anything that I wanted to do. And we started showing pigs when I was, 9 years old.
Let me interrupt you. So how old is your dad now?
64.
He's 64.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you know what? We have similar stories, because I've raised on basically 1,000-acre cow-calf operation here in the southern Iowa. And boy, I just never did want to do it either. And I think that's a good thing. I think you got to cut your own path in whatever it is you're wanting to do in life. And the main thing is just love what you're doing. And so I find it interesting here you say that. You got started showing pigs in like FFA or 4-H?
Right. Yeah. In 4-H, we had a variety of really good 4-H agents when I went through. Jody Bradford, Steve Bradshaw, Brandon Anderson, who'll get mad at me if I say this on a podcast, is Brian Anderson's brother, for everyone that doesn't know who Brian Anderson is. So I was very fortunate to be able to meet some of those guys that I met along the way, and I think just like anybody else, I mean, it just sparked a passion. I loved it. I don't know what it was about it. I loved it. I mean, I remember when we were 9, we went out and fed Duroc gilts in sand runs, in rubber pans. You bet. Throwing milk and eggs in their pan, trying to,
You bet. And so this would have been what year when you would have been doing that? 19. I was born in 80, so late 80s, early 90s is when we kind of got started showing. So and that's the younger generations are loving this podcast just because of that. It's not that we're jamming history down their throats, but it's just they enjoy hearing what we had to go through. It wasn't always 10 5-gallon buckets in a rack with a sprinkle of this and a sprinkle of that, and it was a different time back then.
It really was.
We didn't know any different.
No, so, we didn't. And what's the most, the thing that I think back the most, and it is as we raise kids, it just makes me think about, the way my kids are growing up. I mean, they're growing up with the things that Will and I do with our customers. And I mean, it's on, as high of a level as Will and I could intellectually get to. Yeah. But, we do this with them. But, when I grew up, I mean, we fed them feed. I mean, my dad would always tell me, he said, because I would try to be smarter than the room and scoop of this, scoop of that. Yeah. And Dad said, there are nutritionists making 6 figures somewhere that have went to college for 9 or 10 years. And I can promise you that you don't know more about feed than what they do. So let's just take this bag, feed this pig this.
That's funny.
And so to think for yourself, to do something independently, away from what the family norm is, I think is any kid's dream.
They need to do it.
Just to have an imagination.
Actually, better yet, they need to do it and mess something up.
Exactly.
And then that's how your best lessons are hard learned. And so just touch on your kids. You got 2, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Weston and Grant. Weston's 12 and Grant's 10. They're very different from one another. Yeah. Weston's very kind-hearted, loves showing pigs, loves being around people. Yeah. Grant it can be a bit of a space cadet at times, but unique, I think, is the word that best describes Grant. Yeah. We'll just leave it there.
Oh, that's funny stuff. I'm assuming you were single species showing then through high school or so?
Yeah, we did. I mean, I showed pigs. I showed cattle, because we had cows. And so...
time out. Go back. What type of... Did you have eared cows or did you have normal?
No, yeah, we had most of our stuff down there commercially anyway were lots of American influence. Yeah, I figured. Obviously because of the heat and, just being able to adapt. And so, just because we had cattle, my dad always had more relationships with people that were in that business. And so it was easier access for us to get cattle. And we did it for a couple of years. And to be honest, the pace of it is obviously, I mean, it's way more complicated to probably, feed and fit and do all that with cattle. But just the pace of it, it never clicked with me. Right. It just, I like the pigs. If you buy a terrible pig, you have to look at it for 3 months and you start over. If you buy a bad cow, you got a bad decision for a year and a half or whatever that would be. So.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And people compare the amount of time that they always say, you just went to showing hogs because it doesn't take near as much time. Well, guess what? It might take more time. It might be a different type of time that you're spending. But when it boils right down to it, you don't spend time because it's required. You spend time because you want to and you want to succeed and you want to do the best you can. But I would like to see some of your pigs you showed, some pictures, they
were interesting. And we had a little success. I had Reserve Hamp at Houston one year. I had Reserve Grand at Houston one year. And not because we were because knowledgeable. We just did it because we liked it. Yeah. My Reserve Grand Bear at Houston, Jody Bradford bought him out of a sale in Eufaula, Oklahoma, for $275.
No way.
Brought him back and just, that's when all of our county did everything together.
Was $275 high then, or was that?
Yeah, no, I think it was still relatively cheap.
Yeah.
But $275 is probably your $600-700 today. I would say.
That's what I would guess.
And it brought him back, and just one of those cool stories. That's the pig that no one wanted, so he ended up at our house, and just got fortunate that everything worked out.
And you probably at the time didn't just realize how, not necessarily necessarily how fortunate, but just how nicely things come together. You don't appreciate, I guess appreciation is the word I'm looking for. And you got to get away from that a decade or two before you realize just how much fun you was actually having. So.
Yeah, no, it was. And the things that I remember, and I've got to remind myself this every once in a while with my own kids, is that the things that I remember from showing, honestly, nothing had to do with what we won.
Yeah.
Every memory that I had was, when we would leave for a show, and my grandma, my dad's mom, would feed for us when we were gone. She would feed, I wrote it out on a board, and just, I drew the size of the coffee can so that she couldn't screw that up. And she would get through feeding the last one. Well, the first one was squealing again.
Oh no!
Well, so he was hungry, so obviously he needs more pig food. So anyway, my dad had a plan that we were going to take a Berkshire to Houston one year, and he was going to win the lightweight class as well. We were barely lucky enough to get him in the show at all.
That's kind of a grandma thing. I'm afraid. Yeah. Sure. We got a grandma around here that does that with the dogs that aren't supposed to be eating human food. So that's why I'm kind of chuckling, I guess. All right, then. What did you do there after you graduated high school?
I went to Clarendon. Jerry Hawkins was a guy that started talking to me and taking me on judging trips when I was a sophomore in high school. We went, that in junior and senior year, and told me that we had, he had a couple kids that he was bringing in that year, and thought we could have a very, very competitive team.
Mm-hmm. Clarendon is where?
Clarendon is in the Panhandle of Texas.
Okay.
60, 70 miles east of Amarillo is where it's at. So,
is that the name of the town too? Or?
Clarendon, yes, Clarendon, Texas. Yeah.
But what's the name of the school you went to?
Clarendon College.
Clarendon College.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
So, and Jerry is, I could, the podcast would have to be very long to tell all the Jerry Hawkins stories, but went there that year, and I think just like anybody that goes to college, met, some of the best friends of my life.
Right.
David Grosky, BJ Schilling, you may know.
Yep.
The Schilling guys.
You bet.
Shelley Collins is married to Colby. No, I'm sorry, that was at A&M. But throughout that phase at Clarendon, we met some great guys that have went on to do very, very good things.
Majored in. Is Clarendon a junior college?
Yeah, junior college.
Okay.
So went from there and went to Texas A&M. That really wasn't in my wheelhouse or in my plan. We lived very close to Lubbock, and that was always what I wanted to do, but just didn't work out. So went to A&M, and that's when I was on the team. Jacob Tusa, Ingrid.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Jacob Tusa, Ingrid Oman then, which is married to Jacob now.
Yeah.
Shelley Collins, Colby's wife, David Grosky.
What was Shelley's maiden name?
Shelley Moore.
Shelley Moore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tusa and I snap about every other day.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
okay. Yeah.
Bet. Yeah.
No, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
That was a very fun team to be on. I was, from
what year would that have been roughly?
02 is when when we won Louisville.
And who would your coach been then?
That was Ryan Rathman's very first team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, he was on the team, prior to us, and then just went on to coach. We had a coach prior to him, and then midway through the season, Ryan took over, and he and Skaggs kind of took us into the fall season. But it was
Ryan. I enjoy Ryan because I take care of the judges at the Iowa Beef Expo, and he's judged it a couple times.
Oh, okay.
Really enjoy. One year I had him and Callis both. I got to take out to supper, and boy, that's he's just a good guy.
Yes, he is.
He's where now? He's at
Texas Tech.
Yeah, he's at Lubbock. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Ryan's a great guy. A boy from Aspermont, Texas. Graduated with 29 people. I went from Clarendon and I went to A&M, and I'll just never forget. You walk in this room and there's a leather folder on a table, laying there with Jason Lackey on it, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. I'm not in hillbilly land anymore.
Exactly.
So this is where I'm going.
You bet. I'll be majored in, what did you say?
Animal science. Yeah, majored in animal science, and went from there. I kind of took a little bit off before I went back to A&M to get my master's, more focused on beef cattle production.
Right.
On my master's, and then helped with a couple teams after that, and then actually went from there. I interned in the intermediary with Brian Anderson at Fort Scott with that program. Went to West Texas A&M for just a short stint, and then after I left there, I went to LSU and coached a judging team out there for 3 years and taught some classes.
We were talking about that. I was sitting with some Will's bunch, and I did not realize that, or maybe I was talking to you about it. I don't know. Either way, in town there, my son's girlfriend is from right there in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that. But that's a little different area to land in.
It really is. And when we moved there, I want to say it was about a year after Katrina. And so the population, the density of those towns had had actually gone up immensely because of people trying to relocate and everything else. But, those are some of the best people you'll ever meet in your entire life. And, I've still got great relationships to this day. And I attribute that to being out there in Louisiana at that point and learned a lot. And I'll tell you the neatest thing was, and it was just all by happenstance, there was a guy that lived in Zachary, Louisiana. His name's Randy Bryan, raised pigs for a long time and did it commercially, and then raises some show pigs out there and sells them and has some good luck. And I lived, 5 miles from his house, and I just, I wanted to have some show pigs, and he allowed us to have, 6 or 7 sows out there. And I learned so much, from a production, just practical standpoint from Randy.
God bless those kind of people, because there was an old boy, a good friend of mine. He's passed he's passed several years ago, but he used to have, I think it was an old chicken house, if you want to know the honest God truth, just outside of Ames, Iowa. And the number of big time steer jocks he let keep cattle in there over the years was mind boggling. Yeah. They're just good people that really don't realize what they're doing and how much they're helping someone that's probably going to go on and be a significant influence in that industry. I'm relatively sure Kirk Sturwalt kept some cattle in that barn out there that I was talking about. And just like you as the listeners are going to find out here in a bit, the swine industry stuck with you and the production side of it stuck with you, but you were cutting your teeth right there.
Yeah, no, I really was. And what's interesting about that, and I think that, a lot of kids that are starting to judge or going to college to judge, to understand the things, you can look through a book and see all the terminology you want, but, there are reasons that those terms apply to what we do. There's practical reasons that, that this hock needs to be structured like this, or their hip needs to be this long, or their pelvis needs to be, this wide. So it's all these things that we talk about that are easy to identify phenotypically in an animal. You at some point need to go to a production setting with a guy that doesn't necessarily focus on what we do.
Amen.
And learn those kind of things, because those guys, if they don't have all the production things in line, then they're not going to make any money. I mean,
boy, how do you just said a mouthful right there. And to be honest with you, that is part of the reason why I wanted so badly to start this Genuine JBH, because, even part of the college judging team kids, if they have never, they certainly know what to say about what parts of it, but so many of them has not had a chance to be involved in the production end of it.
Yeah.
And if you can actually do what you just said, and if you can figure out why you're talking about this part of the animal needing to be this way, not only because your coach told you it needed to be that way, but because, in the real world, if they're not built this way, they're going to die, or they're going to not be productive, and
it's easy to get on the microphone and say, like, preferably I like them to be long necked, or I like them to be like this. Well, why? Tell me why.
Exactly.
Why do you want, I hate when they're short hipped. Why do you hate when they're short hipped? Because I pulled sows out of the crate that their hip isn't long enough, and they can't have pigs on their own.
And that doesn't end well.
Yeah. Why does their hock and their foot have to bend the right way?
Right.
Well, because when they're on slats, they cannot get up and down and survive. And so those are the things that are so relatable that, and I'm not by any means saying that a 22-year-old kid doesn't have the right to his own opinion, because I was 22 and so were you at once.
Yes.
But I think to have long-term sustainability, they need to understand that if they do have a preference and they do have a passion and a kind, they need to understand why that kind is relatable to the things that actually matter.
Exactly. That is exactly right. And I told Will, and this podcast is just in its infancy, but one of my goals, one of my dreams for it is to have a complete season on structure. Not talking about it just like that, but simply talking about it like you just did, explaining why. Because if you're 0 through 15, 16, 17, unless you were lucky enough to be next to a sow farm, where are you going to see it?
Right. Yeah.
Where are you going to see it? How are you going to know it? And I'm certainly not belittling that generation for not knowing, because there simply isn't an opportunity for them to step into a situation and see it firsthand.
Yes.
Just like what you said. Why do you want one long? Why do you want one? Why do you want a pelvis built like that? Why do you want what makes a difference whether her vulva is big enough or where it sets or whatever,
Well, and it's a little, frustrating for me, because I'll be 40 in September, but I still feel like a kid in this business, honestly.
Too. Yeah.
Because there are some guys that the old school guys that, I don't know if sad is the right word, but a part that's a little frustrating to me is when people look at the guys in our business that are 60, 65 years old that aren't as competitive in the show pig thing anymore. But I mean, rightfully so. They lay the groundwork for everything that we've done. I mean, if you ever have a chance to have a glass of tea with one of those guys and talk for 30, 45 minutes, you will learn more than you ever thought possible. will, because
I'll guarantee it. I'm not going to say I haven't sat there and hee-hawed at something they might have said judging the show and called them out of touch and this, that, and the other, but I'll guarantee you what they're saying is relative. It's just like I spoke to Gerald Buck there in our podcast. I said, me and you are caught right in the middle. We're 55 years old. We need to still listen to our 80-year-old dads. We need to listen extremely close to our 20-something-year-old kids, and then we need to mesh those two generations together into what we know and then distribute it properly and try and make it be a success. And that's everybody needs everybody is what the whole deal is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where did we go from Texas A&M?
Went from A&M. I went to LSU there.
LSU, that's right.
Yeah, for
that's
a few
where we
years.
were at.
And then as soon as I was done with that, I got a little. I was ready to go home. Yeah. I was ready to be back and do something. And I went home, and Dad wanted me to. His second attempt, or I guess it maybe his first attempt. He wanted me to come home and mess with the oil field stuff. So I helped him a few things. I was miserable.
Right.
My wife could do an entire podcast on those 3 years.
Now you said home is around 11.
Is in Aspermont. Yeah.
And that's
geographically we're an hour north of Abilene.
Okay.
So we did that. That's when I bought my first double L. We started bringing sows back.
Oh yeah. Double L meaning farrowing house, right?
Farrowing house,
outdoor farrowing, portable farrowing house.
Right. And then built a sow barn that was just good enough to house what we needed. Right. Just kind of started building from there, and found a few that that would work. Found a few jackpots that I liked, and bred and had some success early, but obviously just like anyone else, it's an entrepreneur in whatever industry you're in. I mean, there's so many growing pains in the hog business. Just like any other livestock industry, is just the startup to prove your work ethic and your relevancy is just it takes some time.
Yes, it does.
And you've got to prove yourself to your clientele, because if you can't do that, then obviously nothing else matters.
And I've talked about that. And to be honest with you, before I ever started this podcast, I had a little deal on Snap that I just opened it up for questions, and I had questions. I mean, I had 500 and some, I think. And the main question from the 20-something generation was, first of all, how do I make myself stand out, and how do I take it to the next level? I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm breeding pretty good. How do I get to be a Tracy Gretzky or a Wade Rogers or a Will Winter or a Jason Lackey or whatever? And boy, they just want to hear that. And what you're saying is it just takes time.
It does. I mean, you've got to earn people's trust. To be honest, and 95% of your audience may disagree when I say this because they may think the other way, but to be a good human being is all people want is for their children to enjoy this experience.
Right.
That's what they want. I mean, because I was a little naive when I started out with this, because all of us, we have customers that present very high pressure situations.
Right.
Their expectations are sky high.
Sure.
But you think about 90 or 75, 80% of your clientele, they're doing this because of the opportunity for their kids to be involved in what Will and I are doing today.
Exactly.
There's 97,000 kids in your swimming pool right now.
Yep.
And they are all coming together and doing this. And they go to a show and their kid comes back and, they're fourth in class, and I've got my head down thinking I didn't do my job. And they're the happiest family in the entire city. And
they got it.
You've got to adjust your expectations and understand, what people's priorities are. And so I think going back to your original question is it takes time. I mean, there are so many talented livestock people in the world.
Yes.
And there are. I mean, people way more talented than I am. But I think it's your approach, it's your loyalty to people, and it's your willingness to go the extra mile to make sure that they succeed. Because anybody can buy, semen out of a $100,000 boar and then go buy you a $30,000 gill and make pigs. That's not hard to do. No. The sustainability, I think, comes with the way that you treat people and the way you take care of everybody.
That's exactly. And I just hate to say it every podcast because I do not want to ruin the essence of it, but it's called being genuine.
Yes.
One thing I want to say more about Will, because Drake has bought from him, but you also fit right in there side by side. Young guys like Drake that are out there busting their ass, they get noticed by guys like you. From a father looking in on that deal, it's so refreshing to see guys that are 40 or 50 they're right in the heat of the battle, right established in it, that don't ignore the younger generation generations coming up, but simply, they don't view them as competition,
right?
And they give them some guidance. And as a father looking in, man, I just thought, man, I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it would be a huge mistake for anyone my age to look at someone his age as competition.
Yeah.
Even though I think realistically, I could tell you that in 10 years, those kids are going to be way more capable than we are. Because, I mean, you in this business, I mean, it'll pass you by in a hurry.
Oh, buddy.
And
life passes you by in a hurry. Yeah.
And these kids, the thing is, and I don't know, there's certain kids, and I'm not going to name names because I feel like I'll kind of put myself out there a little bit with favoritism. But,
right.
There's a few of these kids I just think you can see in their eyes.
Yes.
I mean, you come to these shows, you look at what they're showing, you can tell by, going back to what you said, how genuine they are. I mean, you can look in their eyes and know, what their concerns are.
Bet.
If you come out of the box and they're doing this just to be famous, then you're never going to have success. No. If you got a true passion and do it for the right reasons and find your mentor, then you can be whatever you want to be.
Mentor or mentors.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's the deal that I've talked about before. With all the social media presence, the Facebooks, the Snaps, everything, people can smell that out faster than ever. They can tell whether you're messing with them or you're on their side and you're gonna ride or die. I think the sooner that everybody realizes that, the better off we're all going to be. And to be honest with you, with this COVID deal the way it is, I think people are realizing it more now than ever.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And you and I as 40, 50-year-old guys, I think we can look on social media and know, the self-promotion thing is sometimes I think that gets a little overkill. There are things that all of us do that we should be extremely proud of. But I think as a younger generation that has, 97 different ways to get their point across socially, they've got to be cognizant and understand that, people can read through that stuff.
There's one good way.
Yes.
And that's just straightforward and honest.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be proud of what you do, I mean, there's
nothing wrong with that.
There's been a marketing platform for that forever. But you've got to understand the way, and I shouldn't say this because I'm not saying you should care about what people think, because most of us don't, but you also have to be cognizant of the way you present yourself to the public, because that's gonna either elevate you or be your detriment moving forward.
That's exactly right. These things used to be taught in school when I was a boy. But times have changed. So this is season 1, the semen industry. Let's talk about your operation now, Jason. Just go right into your current. I know I seen on somebody's snap, I seen your sow barn. Boy, you just built a nice new sow barn. And let's just talk about your production in now.
Yeah, we've got 150 sows there at the house. I think we've looked, on our sheets. We're supposed to have 125 litters this summer.
Nice.
And we farrow year round. We're fortunate enough to have some markets in the Midwest and the West Coast, and in different places all across the country. And what they've done, what the NSR and the NJSA have done for all these events up here. I mean, it helps everybody. It helps all the breeders from all across the country with purebreds and crossbreds and whatever it might be. And so some of my kids' favorites events of the entire year are just coming up here because they get to see the people from other states that they don't get to see on a regular basis. But we've got those sows. We've got a handful of boars and
right there on the place.
Yes, on the place, and not necessarily to be a boar stud. I think the saturation there is a little high, but you have that many sows, you've got to have boars in place that you got faith in, because when they come in heat or just having the availability of semen, obviously. So that's what we do, and our biggest market obviously is.
But you do sell semen.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And our biggest market is in the fall, obviously, for all of our spring shows. Like we'd said earlier, when Will and I talked, we're getting geared up for that right now to start selling pigs in August.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're primarily crossbred, or do you have some breeds?
No, primarily crossbred. Yeah. We've got I've accumulated some Yorkshires over the years because of how our market sits and fits, that we've got we can show those white crossbreds as Yorkshires in the South. Sure. So the the Kevin Rickers and the Chuck Olsons and those guys of the world. They make a great contribution for us being able to do that down there. And so we've got some that we could register, and we do have a handful of red ones. That breed has kind of been, it's been fun to watch over the last couple of years. That's one of those breeds that even though they are considered a quote unquote breed down there, when you got a good red one, I think they can look as elite as anything.
Yes, they can. I agree.
So it's been fun playing with that a little bit.
Yeah, old Chuck Olson. That's actually where Big Red came from, was Olson's. You're talking about up in Irene. Yeah. Chuck and Ben, and actually I filmed for Ben's in-laws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's isn't it funny how it's a huge industry, but it's so small?
Yeah, it's very tight. Yeah. This guy's related to that guy. I mean, everybody.
You just don't want to badmouth anybody.
No. You got to be careful with that.
So, how long have you had this current? How long have you been doing what you're doing now?
We've lived in Haskell for, I think she and I talked the other day, about 8 years now.
8 years.
So when we were in Aspermont, the opportunity, that's when Jackie still had Encore Visions.
Yes.
And had some employees in College Station and different spots. There was actually some a family that lived in Aspermont. Well, Brandon Anderson was the city manager there then.
Okay.
The EDC and just the community itself was very welcoming, and trying to get her business to come to Haskell. And we were looking for a spot to just build a farm. And so, we've done that and just really never looked back. And, obviously her business was successful. We've just been able to stay very aggressive and grow over the last 7 or 8 years. As I mentioned earlier, talking about my dad and my granddad, we're not, third or even second generation hog farmers. So,
right.
From scratch, some of these buildings are a little more expensive, but, we had to have them. It's just a cost of doing business.
It is. Yes, it is. Well, Jason, obviously, as I think I mentioned before, this is season 1, and it's the semen industry. Part of the reason why you're sitting here is you were lucky enough to change an industry with a boar. The boar was a dirty secret, or actually is dirty secret, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about dirty secret.
Yeah, it was, getting into this business, you just never think that one animal could change your entire life. Not saying that the bull did that for you, but
it does.
It makes things swing in a very different direction. I was judging a show, and very unprofessionally, like I do most things in my life, this bluegill walks out. Actually, a buddy of mine had. I stopped judging the show. I walked up to him in the middle of the class and asked him if I could buy her. This is while the class was still going on. He looks at me like, you, and anyway, he shook his head like, yes, I will sell her to you, but you're really kind of making a fool of yourself right now. So anyway, I got that done. It was actually a head-on gilt that Devin Carr had that Lance Ryan raised. Got her bred to rated R, and took that gilt. She showed a few times, got her back, very neat piece. Bred that gilt to Sugar Daddy. So we had that litter. There was 4 pigs in that litter, 4 calico gilts. All of us have been there to watch litters happen, and anytime a sow has 4 calico gilts, the excitement level is never just extraordinarily high. So those come out, and I leased 2 of them out too.
Now let me catch up. So the one that had the 4 calico gilts is the one that you ask about the guy judging? Or?
No, that was a grandma.
That was a grandmother. Okay.
The rated R sow had the 4 calico gilts. They were out of Sugar Daddy.
Yeah, Sugar Daddies. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
And so I leased 2 of them out. 2 of them I sent that were my 2 favorite. Well, both of those end up dying. 2 of the gilts in the litter. And so I sent another one that goes down to the Rio Grande Valley show, and then another one that goes to a county about 60 miles from me. Well, I get the one back from the guy down south. This other guy calls me from another county over and says, "Hey, I've got this gilt. She's kind of skinny. She was 7th at our county, and I'm telling you, this is a 65 head county show. So 7th. Yeah, I'm thinking, oh God, how bad is this animal? So he tells me where he lives, and he said, if you want to stop by and get her, just come get her. Well, I'm thinking, I'm not going to waste my time getting a 7th place gilt out of a county fair. And so I happen to be driving by there that day, and I've got my trailer on. I'll never forget this moment for the rest of my life. I'm driving down this road, and it's misting rain outside. Well, he kicked her out in his pasture. She's out on this grass, and I look up, and she is cocked off in the middle of this field, and I thought, oh my God. So I call him and I said, hey, is it still okay if I grab this gilt? He goes, yeah, we're going to take her to the butcher tomorrow. Oh. And I said, well, I'm going to figure it out. So 45 minutes later, I get her loaded in my trailer and take her home. And then I got her sister back. Well, that was Dirty's mom and Dirty's aunt.
No way.
So
holy buckets, that close to Dirty Secret not happening in life.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable the way the whole thing worked out. I bred both those sows the first time, bred them to Bachelor Party, which was a boar that McCoy and I bought from Kevin Thomas at a pig sale down there. And, they had those two litters, and, Dirty's litter was incredible. He was the smallest, skinniest pig in that litter, but always had just, the way that everything bent and worked behind, and just his build and proportions it was very neat. I mean, he had a brother that was reserve granted Shreveport and another gilt that had won some shows, but, Nick Barry and I are buddies, and I called Nick and I said, hey, I think I've got one that's pretty good. And
which I'm sure he never hears.
Right, exactly. So I'm just some kid from Texas trying to raise show pigs. And the way that Nick tells the story, he walked in my barn that night. He and I had been around looking at pigs all day that day, and he walked in that barn at night, and Nick says he stood up and coughed once, and we just turned right around and went to the house. So he said, I'm gonna own him. Nice. and I think just with anybody, that weekend there was a series of sales down there, and Heimer happened to actually be down there that weekend, and saw the boar before he went to Iowa, and liked him, and and the fact that that Jesse put as much faith in him as he did, that's inevitably what made Weston's Bear that won San Antonio the following year, and just a trickle down effect from there. So anybody can have a good pig, but unless the right breeder puts faith in them, it's hard for them to make their mark.
You got to have some luck with it.
Yeah,
you do. That's incredible. It's funny, man. I love to hear the stories on them, especially them industry changers like Dirty Secret, and it's just like I spoke with Dean Kephart in an earlier deal. Them gut feelings when they hit you like that. Yeah. Oh, buddy, just like when you seen that gilt standing out there in that pasture. That was the furthest thing from your mind, and I had the same gut feeling on a 2-week-old calf that stood up in a 5-acre Kevin pasture one time, and he went on the Iowa Beef Expo and the Iowa State Fair. So just cherish those times whenever because they don't happen very often.
No, they don't. It's so hard to make them elite, and when you do it when a plan comes together, it's just so much fun to see. Just to think about the lineage that you've tried in your mind to put together over years, and then genetically it finally pieces together and happens. It's so much fun to see that. So we're building kind of an apartment on the side of our house, and we're remodeling our house right now. And I told my wife that I want his picture to be the first thing people see when they walk in, because he changed our life.
Yeah.
So
and you know what? That's the beauty of the livestock industry. Everybody should have that happen at least once in life. Yeah. It's just kind of like the reward for trying.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And hopefully it does. And it's just like I've mentioned so many times that you have to have that vision, and hopefully someday that vision comes to fruition, and you get a Dirty Secret. And is he done now?
Yeah, no, he died. I guess it's been a little while yet. So a couple of years. I'm trying to think. It's been a year and a half.
They got some sons out of him, don't they?
There's sons everywhere, and they're still using some frozen stuff. So
man, that's a fun story. Well, so Will and I were talking in his deal, and it's another probably season that I want to do, but you don't have to have a judging background or a judging team background or a coaching background, but I would just like to have some guys of your status and Will's in every species come in and just simply explain to the younger generations, or even the older guys my age has never fully got it, just what you see, what made Dirty Secret special. I said something about balance, which Will nailed it. He says, well, your idea of balance is my idea of portions. What do you judge a lot of major shows? What are the things that just smack you right upside the head when everyone walks in? And we don't have to go super deep, but
No, and I do think, if you do it every day, whether it's you with cattle or Will and I with pigs, I think, and you have conviction and you know how you want them to be built, then I think there's always a pig that'll come in and just hit you, because it's just like I said before, you got a million things running through your head. Length of hip is a thing to me, because I'm tired of pulling sows out of the farrowing house. They're hock, because I'm tired of losing sows because they're too, or this or that. But, balance, proportions, and those kind of things. But, I'm a guy, and that's where Dirty changed a lot of stuff for me. Density and just that breeding hog look is so important, to me, because to me, when you think about density, and if they have
now, describe to the audience what you're talking about with density.
Well, when you talk about density. I mean, just stoutness to their skull, the stoutness to their feature, to their feet, to their bone. And that's not a thing that I look at to think, like, I like show pigs to be heavy bone.
Right.
Or big legged, as the younger generation says.
Right.
But why does it matter that they're like that?
Exactly.
They're like that. If they've got stout heads, they've got better appetites. If their feet are bigger, they survive longer on concrete.
Boy, I like what you're saying.
I mean, if their front leg is big, to me, a boar or a sow, if they've got a big front leg, their ability to generate is substantially higher.
Exactly.
A hog with a small front leg, that's one of the first. I will say, just a dense animal, obviously, is what I like, and their skeleton's got to be flawless.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, just what you said, man. That just my generation, and the younger generation, and even the judging coaches need to know why that forearm needs to be big. Anybody can say, boy, Atkins, I got a big old rugged forearm, and that leaves people sitting in the audience thinking, oh, okay, so we want a big forearm. Okay, next year we're going to look for a big forearm.
Right, exactly.
They have no idea why we want a big forearm.
Yeah.
But
and you go to these jackpot shows, and I really don't want to go down this path, but you go to these jackpot shows, and they're like, well, that one's not slick enough necked for me.
Yeah.
Well, why is that a thing?
Yeah.
And why do you like them? Why? Tell me why that has made a slick necked one has made a difference in your life.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That's what I wanted to ask.
I'll tell you, the biggest thing coming from the show cattle world to the show pig world is you guys wanting them the white chested.
Yes.
Blowed out, you called it. Mm-hmm. Which if a steer's blowed out, we're pretty well screwed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I had to get in my head that it was possible to have a parking garage between their front legs and still move like a cat across the ring.
And it is. And I think pigs can be just like cattle. Like you talked to me, when those cattle are too round shouldered, then nothing works the right way, and locomotion doesn't go.
Right.
And the same thing. I mean, if people focus so much on making them wide chested, then their elbow and their shoulder and everything bend the wrong way.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't allow their front leg to go back and work the way that it should. So I think there's a happy medium. I mean, they need to be big chested. Obviously, that's what sets the surface for meat production and just the capacity of the center part of their body.
Right.
But at the same time, you get them too wide and stuff starts going the wrong direction and it just doesn't work. So again, I just think people need to understand the practical reasons that things need to be built the way that they are.
Well, the first thing people need to realize is they're just a hog.
Yeah.
Okay? They were a hog in 1950, 60, 70, 80, 90, 2000, 2020. You look at the thing I got a kick out of is I found like a 1960 veterinary book or a beef book of some kind, and it showed the hoof of a calf. And it said the hoof needs a spread and slightly turned out. Well, that was about the time that Total Play was around. And he was really turning them out, and everybody's grinding feet, so they almost turn in.
Yeah.
And here we've got a guy that had no idea about anything to do with show saying that the natural cow, and if you look at a natural cow walking across the sand hill in Nebraska, her front feet are going to turn out slightly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have to be careful when we start merging worlds not to get stupid.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when a cow, when her front feet turn out that, it allows more natural cushion to her knee and shoulder, and her entire skeleton works better. I wouldn't and tell those kids that are on judging teams, like, you can think of a pig just like you can think of like an elderly man, 90-year-old man.
Yes, you can.
When their knees, when an old man's knees hurt, his back starts to arch.
Betcha.
And so, I mean, it's the same thing with an animal, any species. So
that's exactly right. And I always wanted to run fast. My cousin played for the Hawkeyes, and he was the fastest guy you ever seen in your life.
There we go.
And he got all my speed, but I noticed at the time that most of the fast guys were bow-legged.
Yep.
Now I'm noticing that most of the fast guys, when I was a boy, are now getting knees replaced. And it's kind of the same thing in the hog deal.
Right.
If you got a hawk pushing out just a little bit, they might be thick, or cattle, either one, but eventually that hawk's going to push out too far, and then they're going to be crippled.
Yep.
It seems like we're at a good place in the show pig industry right now. It seems like, when we started, we had a lot of flat. Old Willie called them flat tires. We had a lot of flat tires, flat pasterns. We had a lot of bow hawks. We had this, that, and the other. But it seems like, why have we bred to get rid of that? Or
well, I think we run through. I think it's very cyclical. Yeah. We'll run through a phase where they're too flat-footed, and so we'll find a piece that'll lift them up, and then you run through a phase where they're too little, and you've got to find a piece that can increase frame size a little bit. And I think the guys that are cognizant that that's a problem, and I think self-awareness is such a big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, because I could go through my sow herd and tell you what's wrong with every one of them. And so phenotypically, I think every time you breed an animal, you've got to have that in the back of your mind, knowing that, she's not good enough here, here, or here.
Yeah.
And so where's the piece that I can find to fix that? Because, there's not a perfect boar.
No.
There's not a perfect sow. I mean, Dirty was an elite piece that was just a generator,
And let's talk about the word piece, because in Blake Goss's deal, he kept one boar specifically to breed a bunch of plainer sows for that one piece that boar had. And the boar, he says, was not well received at all. He was a freak. But a couple generations later, he found that piece he was looking for.
Yeah.
And I don't think today's breeders, I'm not sure they're aware that you have to do that. Tyrone Hoinger down the road here, I swear he used to be 5 steps ahead of everybody mentally. And his cattle were really good too. But he was always just thinking he could set a guy up to sell him a steer faster than you ever see in your life. I learned the same thing when I went on the Today Show. I sat in with a group of producers for that, and they are 5 steps ahead. If they're promoting a product, I'll guarantee you they own the company that's promoting it. They own the TV stations that's promoting the company that promotes it. They've got it down to the second where that bug appears in that TV screen promoting that. So you need to dumb that down into your own program, basically, or water it down into your own program, and just recognize what you need to do. And so many of us are, I'm afraid, get a little barn blind.
Yeah, and it's amazing and I really think that this maybe some would say a little far-fetched on the thought process, but honestly, the reason that skeleton, it's so important from a practical standpoint, but where we show animals down there, we've got 3,000 or 4,000 bears at our bigger shows,
right?
And so their sustainability, their ability to be able to continue to move and use their hind leg the right way, is what allows them to just continue to surface. And so every one of us want to swing for the fence. I mean, there's not a person in America that would not want to win the San Antonio Bear Show. But if you think about longevity and sustainability in your business, the way that's going to continue to happen is for you to, maybe the wrong word, is to appease and make the people happy. The 85% of your customers that want their kid to get across.
Right.
And make it in the big show ring. And the way that happens is to have an animal that's made good enough to where they can allow that process to last.
Right.
So, and another reason, in my opinion, that it's a practical reason that skeleton is so very important.
Right. And the old timers will say, I thought these were meat animals, and they have a point.
Yes,
they were
do.
right.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of this game that we play, is combining the meat factor in with the skeleton factor and creating the one that wins. You know,
Jim McCoy, I don't remember what it was, their telephone number back when people had houses in their phones in their houses. Yeah. It was like 8444 muscle.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And so I had a conversation with Jim a few years ago, and
I love Jim.
Somehow it came up, and we were talking about, this or that, and I said something about, you do realize that muscle still matters, right?
Yeah. Boy, howdy. Said a mouthful there too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a concept to think that market hog needs muscle.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly right. I remember when Stock Talk first started, and I think Jim was the very first one they done, and I just sat there and just absorbed everything he said. I've been to Jim's place, and I know him well. I film right south of him there in Hillsboro bunch, and what a nice guy that's been through a bunch of the history of
he has,
and is still relevant.
His son is one of my great friends, but you talk about him bringing the Pietron thing over, and he's always been a pioneer.
Yes,
and just a great guy.
Yeah. Does his son? Don't they raise some breed of dog? Or?
Yeah, they did.
Don't anymore.
Yeah, I they've got a few of those
bulldogs or something.
Yeah, they go to the bulldogs, and I'll go there occasionally. And he wanted me to go in that dog kennel one time, and this is coming from a guy that raises pigs for a living, and I went in that room. It's the worst. It's the worst thing I've ever smelled in my entire life. I can only imagine. And I just told him I never wanted to ever go in there again.
Yeah. So. Boy, they can sell them though. I tell you what, it's
we've tried to buy just a handful of dogs for our kids, and they're proud of them.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. That's it's and that's just it. It doesn't matter what you're doing. The dog industry's the crossbreeding, the weird deals like that doodle we have.
Yeah.
That Kate has. It's fun. Genetics are just fun. Period.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what species or whether it's cats or dogs or hogs or cattle or whatever. But well, Jason, we better probably wrap this up here for long. Once again, man, I'm glad you decided to come to Corden, Iowa, and lay over and And I'm glad you guys decided to come out and swim a little bit with the kids, and so I could nab you for a little bit. His wife just sat down in here and swore that she wouldn't say a word on here, so I'm not going to ask her, but it's good to see you, Jackie. I was telling your husband I knew you way back when you was Jackie Townsend, so we've known each other a while. Not that you're that old. I'm that old. You haven't aged a bit. But all right, any last parting words, Jason? It's been really fun getting to know you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time. This is very cool. I don't know how many people do this every day, but I mean, every morning, you know, when I get up, I put my Bluetooth in and I'm listening to some podcast all day. And sometimes it's sports, and I you know, my wife she'll listen to sports talk radio with me in the truck, and she said, "Did you hear what they just said?" And most of the time I'm not listening. It's I just like noise in my head. Exactly. I don't know why that is. It's just something to hear talk. But you know, with these podcasts and some of the ones that allow you to think, I think they're very, very cool. So it was very cool to be on one.
Well, and I tell you what, I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. That's what my goal is. As I said, I might not be the smartest guy, but I can sure run my mouth, you know, and I have been around long enough to know who knows. And that's my goal in this whole deal, is not only for beef or for pork, it's the goats and the sheep and everything else. I got some really fun stuff coming up. And you mentioned that, walking around with that in your head playing, and boy, I tell you what, I get a kick out of my snaps, because I get snaps from Canada in tractors. I get snaps from Kansas combine and wheat. I get snaps from younger generation's cool rooms, rinsing cattle, and I get snaps from about every generation, and women walking, doing their evening walk or whatever. And I tell you what, that tells me that it is kind of resonating with our industry and with our kind of people. I'm afraid in the future we're really going to need to know our type of people better than we've ever known in our lifetime, and that's kind of the goal. And appreciate you coming in and sharing some of your wealth of knowledge, and look forward to talking to you. Good luck up at what is that called up there? Actually, it's not the World Pork Expo.
It's
just
not
a type conference.
Yeah, it's a type. Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
I'm glad all you guys pulled into Corden, Iowa, and best of luck, and thanks again.
Thanks, Brad.
You bet.
You're listening to the Genuine JBH podcast.
Big thank you to the sponsors out there for me. If you're interested in sponsoring here, just be sure and give me an email or a snap, and I'll certainly go over it with you. Genuine JBH podcast obviously is in its infancy stage, and I rely a lot on what I hear back from you guys via snap, or you can drop us an email if you don't snap, or leave a message on Facebook. Well, once again, I greatly appreciate our sponsors, and if you're a cattle enthusiast, please check out the Facebook pages of Voss Angus, Warning Cattle Company, steerbidder.com, where you'll find the new catalog livestock listing service. And if you happen to have invested in some cattle embryos that need the utmost of care, check out Wilkerson Farms Facebook page. Boy, that facility is remarkable. If you're looking to remodel your working facility, an old barn or a new barn, or maybe even putting some pens in a trailer, give Amos Welding a call. Check their Facebook page out. And then please don't forget our online apparel store managed by Custom Tees of Mid-Georgia. Todd down there is one great guy. If you have any questions while ordering online, his number is right at the bottom left of that page. Well, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Genuine JBH podcast. It helps us out in the iTunes ratings, and like our Facebook page at Genuine JBH Podcast.